I've been staring at my computer screen for a while now, trying to figure out how to put words to feeling. I guess I want to do the same thing I always try to do: convey the strength of stories and how sometimes the right story at the darkest point in your life can save you. I suppose I should start at the beginning. Attack on Titan is a story about many things, but more than anything, it is a story about conflict and all the shades of color it can take. Those who have read it or watched it know what I'm talking about. It is the tale of a group of heroes and friends who save humanity from an absolute evil, a faceless and featureless enemy that seeks nothing more than to eat the last remnants of humanity hiding within the walls. And to that end, we have the main cast, characters that are almost all introduced as archetypes, but all have hidden and wonderful little psychological depths to them. And that is ignoring the main trio. Take, for example, Reiner, the metaphorical big brother of the Corps, whose easygoing but strong nature creates this sense and feeling of stability and reliance. It's good. You know, when people need advice, they go to Reiner. You need someone to have your back? Reiner's got it. Want to talk about girls? He's your guy. And that's just this one character. There's the peculiar friendship trio that John, Sasha, and Connie develop, with John being the more analytical and thoughtful of the three, while Connie and Sasha back him up with strong idiot energy and sheer enthusiasm. And once again, I'm ignoring the main trio of characters. These are just like side characters. The point behind all this is that the Cadet Corps are in essence every hangout group and ambitious achiever you know, every friendship and rivalry. They are every late-night drive through small towns singing sea shanties. They are the friends everyone has. Isayama, I think, did craft something quite special with them. Especially with how, although they are all introduced as archetypes, over time they each show depths far beyond what is originally shown. A mean-spirited and somewhat vindictive character like Ymir might have a strange, affectionate side to her. Her sharp and cold nature not a result of cruelty or callousness, but instead of saying everything she feels like in the time she is given. None of us live forever, after all, and some people go their entire lives without speaking any sort of truth or honesty at all, no matter how cruel it is. And once again, this is a side character we're talking about here. And so it's a lot of fun, and there is little doubt that this group of friends and rivals, some closer and some less so, will take down the absolute evil of the Titans and thus free humanity into a new golden age. And Isayama almost manages to convince you, almost manages to trick you into believing it. Almost makes you forget how horrible war and conflict really is. Early on in the story, the main character, Eren, loses his mother in a Titan attack. It is grisly and nightmarish, and is befitting such terrible creatures as the Titans. But an understated moment in that whole scene, I think, is from the perspective of the guardsman Hans, who swoops in to rescue Carla, Eren, and Mikasa from the approaching smiling Titan. In any other story, this would be the moment that young Eren sees just how magnificent the soldiers he's trying to become are. In any other story, Hans might take a chance to flare and show off. In any other story, the soldier might sacrifice himself so that the mother and the children might live. Instead, Hans never enters combat with the Titan. Instead, he sheathes his blades and flees, taking the children and leaving the trapped mother to die. It was at her screaming request, but still, it does leave a bad taste in one's mouth. And the thing is that after spending so much time in the Corps and meeting all these intriguing characters, doing cooking competitions, hanging out, and just watching these characters live in the moment, it's easy to forget or understate the horror of what they will be facing. Like I said before, we almost forget the reality of the situation. But lucky for us, Isayama is kind enough to remind us of the reality. The Battle of Trost is one of the turning points in Attack on Titan. Humanity was saved, but only under a mountain of dead bodies and tragedy. We saw some characters rise up, and we saw some characters fail and fall. Characters like Jon or Armin stepped up, and the two formed a curious friendship as two characters who think quickly in high-pressure situations. But for characters like Eren and Mikasa, I think the arc showed their vulnerability. For all of Eren's will and perceived freedom and determination, he is a victim to his own nature. And for all of Mikasa's strength, she is deeply and irrevocably emotionally vulnerable. And in this haze of eaten bodies and tears, there are strange revelations made about the world. Humans can turn into titans, and Eren is one who holds this strange ability. I remember the first time I saw this and read it, I was deeply disappointed. I thought it lessened the impact and sorrow and strangeness of the Titans. It made them more mundane. But in the long run, all is made clear, and the story would not be the same without this fact. Attack on Titan is without a question a story that needs to be read or watched through at least twice. Once, the first time, not knowing anything, you are ignorant of the world just as the characters. And a second time, when all is revealed. Isayama is a master of giving throwaway lines of dialogue fascinatingly dual meanings, especially if you already know what's going on. But in the Bloodbath of Trost, there is a hidden tragedy that took place just out of view of the main battle. No one saw the death of Marco. No one knew how or when or in what manner he passed. And yet, there he lay, a half-eaten carcass amongst the ruin. What did he see before the end, I wonder? And where were his squad mates? After Trost, the story grows far stranger. There is a slight unease. We don't entirely know the rules of the world or the truth behind our enemy. There is also an ever-present background concern over the peculiarity of what went down in Trost. And yet, that concern is overwhelmingly dashed because the Survey Corps has finally made their debut. Commander Erwin Smith, Mike, Levi, Hanji, and so many others. They really do create this aura of comfort, control, stability. In Trost, it was the cadets who were thrown into the meat grinder head first, just hurled into death, and it really was made apparent just how green and vulnerable they were. But the Scout Corps are the elite of humanity, those who wage war against its enemies out in the open field without walls to protect them. They are those who seek out that ephemeral truth of the world. But it is also made abundantly clear that they are a bunch of weirdos, which makes sense. Anyone who does the things they do would have to be a bit strange. These are not normal people at all. Erwin, who plots and schemes against some unknown player, makes strange statements, kind of mumbling to himself and others who will listen. Who is the real enemy? Who are we fighting? What are you willing to sacrifice? Or someone like Hanji, for whom the act of progress is everything, the simple forward momentum onto discovery. Or Levi, who we will get to, don't worry. The point is that there is a whole host of new main characters and side characters who all really have this sense of surety to them, if not also possessing some degree of peculiarity, strangeness, and being weirdos. And the story progresses. There are a lot of moments I do want to talk about, like the small battle between Armin, Jon, Reiner, and the female Titan. There's this little detail I really love in how, when they decide to run, instead of helping Armin up, Reiner just picks him up and legs it with him. Or moments like the small tragedy of Petra in Levi's squad. How mayhaps her care for her captain went beyond simple loyalty and duty. But I think, funnily enough, one of the moments that sticks out to me the most is Armin and Jon's conversation at the end of the Battle of Stohess. Those who can't abandon anything cannot change anything. Those who fight monsters become them, and whether or not a victory like that is worth anything at all. Tell me, would you become a devil to achieve your dream? Or is it paramount to maintain your sense of humanity, to maintain your decency, to hold on to what you are? I think it is quite telling that the two characters who discuss this aren't Eren or Mikasa, or Erwin and Levi, but John, who is in many ways the story's most human character, and Armin, who is without question the story's heart. Both have a lot of self-doubt, self-reflection, and think constantly on their actions. Did they do enough? Could they have done more? What would they have sacrificed if they wanted to change the world? It's a really beautiful scene, and it's one that I remember. But during this moment of tenderness, something equally important and far more horrible was occurring. As the Battle of Stohess was fought in blood and fire, another battle under Moon was also about to take place. Mike, humanity's second strongest soldier, a character with fascinating, if untapped potential. I suppose he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. He died alone, and horribly. And the events around his death led to something absolutely extraordinary. This part of the story is where a bunch of the characters who have been relegated to side roles get to shine. Characters like Ymir and Krista, whose complicated relationship is put on full display. Or Sasha and Connie, who really show heart and care and a willingness to save others. Or the best boys of Bertolt and Reiner, who once again display why they are the big brothers of the group, as all of them take refuge in an old fort to wait out the night. And once again, we are treated to one of those classic scenes of unease that Attack on Titan does so well. Everybody's scavenging for food, drink, anything, and Ymir finds some canned herring, which is fine. Reiner walks in, the two of them get to talking, Reiner picks up the can, and boom. What language is that written in? How could Ymir read it? And once again, it feels like as if you can almost puzzle out the picture, almost see the whole truth. And the thing is that you can, if you're paying really close attention. Herring is a saltwater fish, and humanity within the walls has no access to the ocean. The scene ends abruptly with a Titan attack, but never does that unease leave your mind. Until one of my favorite reveal scenes in fiction. Reveals, mysteries, they are without question fun and shocking when done right, or inordinately disappointing and dull and banal when done wrong. A good twist might be something akin to the Red Wedding, a scene to this day which I think is quite superb in book or show. A moment of happiness strung through with unease until absolute tragedy. There must be absolute control of tone, pacing, the build-up and hints must be expertly and intentionally crafted. But what about the understated twist, the subversive twist, where in a moment that should be of massive import is instead just said out loud with no build-up or panache whatsoever? That is why I love this scene. It is so utterly ingenious, so irrevocably shocking that something so monumental is revealed while the camera pans away as if to something more important. If you haven't read or watched Attack on Titan, click off the video. I'm asking you to. Click off the video. I'm telling you, go watch it, go read it, whatever. This video will still be here when you get back. So, the twist, the shock, the reveal. There is this perpetual feeling of unease throughout the whole episode, a sense of strangeness to everything, which builds moment by moment until... Hey, Eren, do you have a second to talk? In any other show, or comic, or story, the build-up to who is the armored or colossal titan might have been a massive plot point. In Attack on Titan, Reiner just walks up straight up to Eren and says it, As the camera pans away to the rest of the scouts who are walking away, Reiner just rambles to Eren about how he's the armored and Bertolt is the colossal, and Eren needs to go with him because things would be better that way, and there doesn't need to be any violence, we can all just chill. And every person who I have seen watch or read this scene has the exact same reaction. Momentary confusion and the exact same response as Eren. Reiner, my man, are you good? What are you talking about? Reiner may have seemed like the big brother, he may have seemed stalwart, may have seemed like someone you could rely upon. In reality, this was just a complicated and sad coping mechanism for an extraordinarily conflicted and guilt-ridden character who has barely been able to live with the weight of his actions. Guilt which has finally broken his fragile psyche. Why can't Eren just listen? There really doesn't need to be any more bloodshed when you think about it. And in this moment of weakness and mild delusion, Reiner totally and completely forgot the reality of the situation. The reality and consequences of his own actions. In his mind, Eren truly was and is Reiner's friend. And there are a few other details which just captivate about the scene. Bertolt he's just trying to go along with Reiner's delusions. The fact that Mikasa stopped walking just close enough to hear the whole conversation, and the cut to Armin and Sasha waving them to catch up, while on the other side of the frame we see Mikasa, just a few feet closer, but whose face says everything. She heard the entire conversation, but interestingly enough, she doesn't jump into action. Not immediately. While Eren is swallowed by confusion, she waits, certain and ready for any action anyone might take. And really, Eren's response is what anyone would give in this situation. What did Reiner expect? Did he think that Eren would just say yes? You're just tired, aren't you? And Bertolt is left to watch in horror as his warrior comrade burns any chance of cover they might have had. A moment later, the facade around Reiner crumbles completely. What had he done? What was he doing? What had he been thinking? And finally, Reiner has enough. There was nothing he could do to escape the hate or self-doubt. All he had left was his original duty, and that he would fulfill to the bitter end. It is a wonderful scene, ingeniously thought up and expertly crafted. It really is a fantastic section of the story. Even parts that seem smaller at first, like Ymir's characterization. Freedom and dreams are an ever-important theme in Attack on Titan, and I think each of the characters goes about valuing, achieving, or striving after them in their own unique ways. Take John, for instance, a character who wants to live lackadaisically and with some hedonism and laziness. That is his goal, his dream, to live simply and lazily. Similar to someone like Hans, who fights so that lazy days might return. However, John's moral compass keeps him from that path. If he doesn't stand up and fight against the shadows, who will? He wouldn't be able to live his perfect, peaceful life, knowing he could have done more. Or characters like Eren, who strive towards that ideal of freedom with all of their being. Ironically, Eren is without question the character in the story who lacks freedom the most, but we'll get to that. And I think all of this is really interesting when we take a look at Ymir as a character. She has a relatively small role in the story overall, even when looking at the other side characters. But she still rings out as one of the most important to the story. It is my belief that Ymir is Attack on Titan's free spirit. She knows herself and what she is and lives without lies. Does that make her abrasive, selfish, and overall scummy? Yes. But nevertheless, she lives almost entirely in a manner which makes her free. She made use of her second chance to live without lies and chose to die in a manner which fit her pride and spirit. And the story really wouldn't be the same without her. Perhaps the only character in Attack on Titan who I think was truly free. I think another character that really articulates that dichotomy between slavery and freedom is Kenny Ackerman, who gives one of my favorite monologues within the whole story. The overall point is quite simple. Humans don't just live for life. They can't. Everyone, regardless of anything, needs to be drunk, intoxicated on something to keep going. Some drug, some fuel, love, wealth, God, loyalty, family, country, power, drink. Humans enslave ourselves to these things in order to bear the weight of the world, in order to have the fuel and the drive to keep going. But in so doing, we cast away a part of ourselves and tie it to these transcendental forces. We lose our freedom. Even Ymir, who is arguably the character most free, has one regret at the end. And that regret was tied up in someone she loved and wanted to help. Someone who she wanted to be as free as her, and to live without the crushing weight that comes with self-deception. And in part, Ymir succeeded, and I think Historia really demonstrates the impact that Ymir had. And it's sweet. Characters in Attack on Titan die, but always are they carried on. Their presence is forever felt, and that makes me smile. Hey, really quickly, I just want to talk about a small difference between the manga and the anime and this cutscene that doesn't exist in the animated form. So after Ymir leaves, Historia has a full borderline psychotic break to the rest of the scouts. She goes through basically all the stages of grief. She's in denial. She got to get Ymir back. She's got to, they can go after. But the reality of the situation is that she is gone, and she basically slowly comes to the realization that Ymir abandoned her and left her after telling her to go live for yourself, be free. And she has this complete break, and it's really, really, really uncomfortable to read. But I also think that it's a pretty strong and kind of powerful scene that indicates some of the characterization between the two, at least from Historia's point of view. We get a lot from Ymir's perspective, but most of the time their relationship from Historia's perspective is only really keyed in after Ymir has already left. It's a pretty common through line in Attack on Titan that, dreams, love, desire, happiness, it's often felt more strongly after the fact. It's the regret after it's already gone and you didn't realize what you had, friendship or otherwise. Anyway, it's a good scene. I just wanted to quickly talk about it. Carry on with the video. And in this part of the story, the scouts, the lead characters, I think, really come into their own. They aren't just rookies or greenhorns anymore. They have truly become the elite of the scouts, which makes it all the more interesting when the scouts at their fullest strength and the titans have their final showdown. The scouts have been on a winning streak and are at the height of their power. Their numbers have been replenished by new recruits and morale is at an all-time high. And I think it's really telling with the overall tone of the story how comfortable this episode is. It almost feels like we are back in the Cadet Corps, almost like that energy and vibrance of youth has returned. It's not quite the same, but it is close. And it is here that I think I want to finally talk about two of our main three characters. Armin and Mikasa are quite fascinating when examined through different lenses. Mikasa, for example, is someone who lives in her head a bit. She is quiet and reserved. Even if we know she struggles with her past, she is someone who lives a great deal through nostalgia, through a brief period of her life when things were good. She lives in this dreamland of childhood gold. But because of that, her judgment in some situations can become faulty. She does not make good decisions when put under emotional stress. Danger and peril don't really impact her, but because she bases so much of her life and happiness and purpose off of other people, when things affect them or they are put in harm's way, she becomes coldly volatile. For Mikasa, the world is unceasingly cruel, but also beautiful. Someone like Armin is in many ways her opposite. Armin lives for the future, for a better tomorrow, for dreams of white beaches and salty seas. And unlike others, he is often seen as weak and being in need of protection. But still, even if viewed as pathetic, he is someone who will crawl towards that kinder tomorrow. And I think it's telling, especially his reasoning for joining the Scouts. He doesn't join to kill Titans, he doesn't join to protect the people he cares for, and he doesn't necessarily feel a moral obligation to fight. He wants to see sights he has never seen, the oceans and forests and deserts of the world. And because of that, he can usually be counted on in situations to make sound judgment calls, even if he is never really waving his blade around on the front line. But in addition to that, he is quite sensitive, and tragedy strikes him far harder than either Mikasa or Eren. He often carries a great deal of guilt, his mind plagued by what-ifs and self-hate. What if the choices had been made so that the future could be avoided? Why am I so weak? Why can't I be stronger? Armin lives in this eternal beach, eager to see the salt seas. And I think the way these two play off of Eren is really, really interesting and makes for a compelling character dynamic. But we aren't going to talk about Eren just yet. For a moment, friends, let us enjoy this evening and reminisce. Sometimes I wish I could go back to parts in my life when the world seemed brighter and kinder. I don't genuinely wish for such things for my own personal reasons, but every so often I wish for Friday afternoons where I would walk with my friends to get chili burgers at local diners and then play RPGs long into the night. Sometimes I wish for the simplicity of weekend days where it seemed like freedom would never end. And sometimes I wish for summers where I would play Lego games with my brother, Lego Star Wars The Clone Wars, Lego Batman, or play Evolve on the PS4. And then I wake up. Reality is reality. We cannot make those days return no matter how hard we try.
And my lungs will grow cancers, and my back it will grow achy. I will buy us an acre of some land in the city. We could live there together, or I'll live alone, less happy.
I think the return to Shiganshina is really, truly something special. I think it is the epitome of what someone can do with a dynamic battle sequence. The hope, confidence, and strength is turned into a desperate battle where victory is not the goal but simple survival. I think this small arc alone makes the entirety of Attack on Titan worth viewing. If you haven't read or watched Attack on Titan, I'm begging you, turn off this video, go see it, experience it for yourself. Because after this, we're going to get into some truly big plot points. I think the return to Shiganshina arc really begins at the end credits of Season 3, where you should have your normal anime ending. You instead get this. There aren't really words I can use to describe it, so I'm just going to show you a quick snippet from the scene. For an impressionable little mariner, this was truly something special. You have to understand, I didn't know what an Evangelion was. I had never seen a David Lynch movie. The avant-garde was still a ways off in my mind. And something like this was utterly captivating. It was a promise by the story. Give me just a bit more time, and all your questions will be answered. The secret of the Titans, the mystery of the walls, who will live and who will die. Give just a bit more of your time, and it will be answered. And along with this enlightening truth will come something more terrible than words can describe. I could scarcely contain my excitement. And the thing is that promise, the story goes through with it. and it actually lives up to the expectations. The Battle of Shiganshina is one of my favorite battles in fiction. Every move, every decision, every choice, in the end, they all have weight and cost. Even if a single person had behaved differently, the entire course of events may have changed. Every choice and every second mattered. I could make an entire series of videos just breaking down this battle, but instead I'd like to talk about the character of Levi. Levi is fascinating, if not somewhat understated. His emotions are often kept muted, and he is viewed commonly as cold and ruthless. And while these are not entirely incorrect, I think there is a lot going on under the surface. Levi wins his fights. If there is a battle or duel or fight that involves Levi, he will almost certainly come out on top. Some might argue that this takes away any tension whenever he is on screen, but I think there is something more fascinating to be looked at. Although Levi wins his fight, his is a history of failure. Isabel and Farlan, his squad, his comrades, he couldn't save a single one. He lives without regrets for the choices he makes, but that is because he has to. Regret would destroy someone like Levi, and so he lives without it. He keeps moving forward. And over time, we can see the toll it takes on him. Isabel and Farlan hit him hard and he loses control, but when he wasn't there for his squad, the only trace of grief can be seen in his eyes. The voice of a father whose worry for his daughter burns in Levi's ears. And so I think after his showdown and final conversation with Kenny, that little smile he gives to the Cadet Corps, now Scouts, now the elite of the Scouts, really means something. Most of his comrades might be gone, but these youngsters still help him. And he helps them in this sort of almost parental, big brother-esque role. Levi has a complicated relationship with the dreaming devil, Ervin Smith, his commander. Ervin is in many ways a sort of unsettling and frightening character. His conviction, his dream, his selfishness. But at the same time, there is that light in his dreaming eyes, which is utterly inspirational. And so when Levi tells his longtime friend to die for their victory, I think it really hurt him. He hides his face for a moment before asking this of Ervin, and Ervin only asks a single thing in response. Kill the Beast Titan. Kill Zeke. But Levi's history is that of failure and solitude. He killed the Crimson Heart Titan, but failed to save Isabel and Farlan. He beat Annie, but couldn't save his squad. And now he faces off against the Beast Titan, and of course, he wins, handily. Zeke is fearsome, but no match for Levi. And in that brief moment where Zeke's life was in his hands, he hesitates. Maybe he would steal Zeke's Titan and give someone else life. Of course, by someone else, he meant Ervin, his longest friend. And in that instant, the choice is yanked from his grasp and Zeke escapes. The greatest blunder of Captain Levi, the strongest soldier. And there are plenty of other small tragedies within this battle. Marlowe's thoughts of a girl who might have cared for him, Bertolt understanding the truth of the situation more than any other. No one is right or wrong, but duty still needs to be done. Or Moblit sacrificing himself for Hanji. In his last moments he cries out her name, but not her title. But the real moment of tragedy, I think, really comes full circle in Midnight Sun. The entire episode is a debate. Who to save? The dreaming devil, Ervin Smith, or the scout who searches for the sea, Armin Ardlet? I have seen many arguments online and in person over the correct choice, Armin or Ervin, which choice made the most sense, or which would have been the most logical, or which would have been better for the future. In the end, though, I think it is fascinating the choice that Levi made, because at the end of the day, it was his choice. Levi's and Levi's alone, his and no other. He chose to let his friend rest, to not drag him back. And I wonder sometimes how things would have changed had he made a different choice. Truly, everything would have been altered forever. The course of events changed irrevocably. And then the characters get to the basement, and the story alters its trajectory permanently. Very rarely, I think, are twists and reveals as monumental as the basement pulled off well. But the basement in Attack on Titan still retains its position as one of the best. I really can't tell you here what it is. Just watch it, go read it both. If you haven't seen or read Attack on Titan and you've gotten this far, I don't know what you're doing. You know, I mean, cool. You know, thanks for watching. But I think it's time we finally talk about the slave to freedom himself, Eren Yeager. There are a lot of ways to view Eren throughout the story of Attack on Titan, but I think one of the most important is that he is not a character that changes. Even when confronted with the reality that the world is not black and white, evil and good, monsters and heroes, titans and scouts, his nature does not change. Even if he possesses the ability to reflect, to know the darkness of his own actions, even still, he cannot change. This is his tragedy, to be aware of his fate, the fate of his nature, but unable to stop it. He is, at his most central part, a slave, utterly and completely bound by his desire to be free. I think he and Reiner's conversation in the depths of Liberio prove this. Reiner and Eren both commit the same act in this moment, the difference being that Reiner was confused, on the verge of breakdown, and had little knowledge in the way of context for his actions. Would he have behaved the same if he had knowledge of the whole picture? Perhaps. But he would have, without question, been haunted. And at the least, I think there might have been some hesitation. Maybe he would have made an entirely different choice. But Eren already has the full context. He sees the entire picture, and without hesitation goes through with his conviction, because it is in his nature to do so. He was not taught to be this way or brainwashed, he was simply born. When Hans dies, Eren screams out that he hasn't changed, that he is still the same person, and it's true. He is still the same child. At the height of his evil, it is not some mature adult we see, or brooding dark figure, but a child, looking out from the view of millions dead, who proudly proclaims with joy and wonder, "This is freedom." So much hate, so much rage, enough poison in his emerald eyes to burn the whole world to ash. He still loves his friends, he still cares for his people, but his nature was stronger. His yearning was greater, and his pain greater than their love. Once, a long time ago, I went out into the world with my friends. We left our hometown to go on a grand adventure. I was excited to see things and experience things that I never had before, to meet new people, see new places, encounter new things. And I was left so very utterly and completely disappointed. If this is what humans did with the bounty of the earth and the freedom to choose the path of our lives, then maybe we don't deserve it. Which brings us to the final part of this video.
I'm not to blame. These ain't my sins. I broke my chains. There's more to do, and I still want to live.
When Erwin Smith led his final charge, it was into Zeke's boulders that they rode. And in that moment where Zeke destroys them, it isn't joy at victory or elation Zeke feels, but anger. Anger at those who fill their hearts with zealous ideology and hurl themselves into war. Their lives were pointless. They died and suffered and bled for no meaning whatsoever. Their lives were spent for nothing. Take, for example, Marlowe. Did his death contribute to humanity's victory? Would things have really been any different if he had stayed home with the girl who cared for him, instead of suffering and dying alone and hurting her in the process? Zeke's own family made similar choices. His father and mother both burned their lives away in zealotry and revolutionary ideals. Zeke never wanted freedom, he never wanted truth, he never wanted to see the great oceanic, cosmic expanse of freedom. Zeke wanted parents. He wanted what I think we all want in some small part. He wanted love. His parents never gave him that. They suffered and died and wanted Zeke to give his life for their dreams, to cut his life short as one of the 9 and to die for Eldia. Enough. Enough with the cycles of sending children to war. Enough of the cycle of suffering. Enough with this eternal violence. Enough. During that period of time when I was out in the world with people I called my friends, the people I cared about most in the world turned on each other, turned on me again and again in escalating examples of violence and pettiness. The relationships breaking down under growing acts of little nonsensical evils. I was alone as the people I cared about most turned on me and each other. What was the point? I wished to myself more than once, if only I hadn't been born. If only I never existed. If only. For every person Zeke kills, he feels that he saves untold numbers of children from ever being born. For each person that dies and suffers, it is an uncountable number saved. In his mad empathy, he has let idealism and zealotry turn him into a monster, just as he feared and hated others for it doing the same. Even if it is born out of compassion rather than hate like his brother, Zeke and Eren are opposites in all regards. One was born with emerald fangs and the nature to burn his way toward freedom no matter what. The other was born without conviction or strength or anything else other than a desire to be loved. One seeks to destroy everything perceived as outside himself for the green freedom he craves. The other seeks to destroy everything within himself in order to save them from an infinite loop of perceived suffering. Every life taken is an infinite multitude saved from ever being born and drawing breath. And Zeke loses the overwhelming amount of his fights, most of which are against Levi. But he also almost always comes out on top against him. The simple answer, I think, is because Levi doesn't understand Zeke, nor could he. The two's perspectives and lives are far too alien to one another. But because of that, Levi misses the conviction of Zeke's cruelly alien empathy, and fails time and time again. Eren's final order damning him endlessly. And although Zeke conquers Levi, at least on a metaphorical level, it is ironically his compassion and empathy that destroys him, alien and cruel and mad though it may be. For there is a deeper message in Attack on Titan which captivates me utterly. Dreams destroy us. Eren's dream of truth eventually led to his death. Han's pursuit of bringing back the past, Levi's duty, Hanji's idealism, Kenny's lust for power and peace, Historia and Ymir's love, Armin's goal to seek the sea ends in tragedy, and emotionally he is wounded. Mikasa's love for Eren, and of course Eren's own desire for freedom. All are what hurt the character most intimately. The world cycles over and over, and we hunt after the same things again and again. During that period, I hated everyone and everything. I wanted to destroy myself, to do anything to stop the pain. I hurt the people closest to me just as they hurt me. It was an endless cycle of escalating hate. It was, I think, the lowest point in my life, and I wondered daily what my point was. Why did I do the things I did if the people I thought I cared about most hated me? Hated me more than should have even been possible. Why was I ever born in the first place? And then I saw it. Sometimes the right story at the right time, I think, can save someone's life. How do I know? Because that's what happened to me. It was a simple realization, really, but it wasn't one I was capable of making at that time. It wasn't a big flashy fight or the conclusion of an arc or the end of a series, just a conversation. Maybe I wouldn't mind being born again if I could see this story. Maybe it would be alright to live again if I got to talk to my parents about inconsequential things. Maybe I would want to be born again to laugh with friends again, even if now we no longer speak. Even if life is strange and frightening and cruel, even if it serves no purpose in this giant void of cosmic infinity, I might be alright with that if I got to tell and listen to stories told by people just living same as me. The stories I care about, all of them, don't serve a real purpose, at least not like food or water or safety or comfort. We just tell them to each other over and over in different ways and through different mediums. But to me, these things, which some people view as the most inconsequential things, matter more than almost anything else. These tiny, abstract things are more precious than anything else. So, even if a lot of people hate the ending and are angry at Isayama, if I got the chance, I would want to thank him and everyone who ever worked on the series. Even if no one else in the world feels the way I do about it, I want to say thank you. Even if people disagree with this video, I want to say thank you. Because to me, it mattered. This story saved my life. In every age, in every place, the deeds of man remain the same. And so, yeah, the world sucks, and there are cycles of violence, and people hurt each other, but even then, even if you're caught in this cycle, even if your work sucks, even if your friends hate you, even if your family doesn't care, even if no one in the world acknowledges you even exist, even then, even in war and plague and peace and everything, in rain and cold and winter, even then, still, I think it's worth it. Even though we are all going to turn to dust in 100 billion years and there will be nothing left, even then, I think it's worth it. I mean, think about this. You could go outside anywhere you are, desert, tundra, snow. You can go anywhere. You can see a tree, you can see the earth, you can see water, and I think there's something just great about that. Fresh air, clean water, growing green things, dirt, earth, soil. I think it all makes it worth it. The world is cruel and it sucks, but it is also beautiful, and living is something special. Acknowledging life is important. And so, even then, even through all of this infinite nightmare, that we all find ourselves in, go do something. Go make someone's life better. Make yourselves life better. I think it matters. You want to go write a book? Go write it. You want to write a web serial? Go write it. You want to start making silly videos on the internet talking about anime and manga? I think you should do it, because why not? Really, I think that we're all in this together. We might as well try and make our lives better mutually for each other. Yeah. And so I want to ask you one last thing. Tell me, my friend, dear listener, people, wherever you are, have you ever seen the ocean? I've heard it's beautiful. Salt and water and coral and fish and everything that exists above it and in it. I think I want to. I think I'm going to go see it. The world may be cruel, but it is also astonishingly beautiful. Hey, if you made it this far in the video and you finished it, thanks for watching. Your views, likes, comments, dislikes, all of it means a lot. And so thanks for sticking around and let me make videos. Sorry this one took so long. It was a lot, this one. So yeah, if you like what I do, leave a like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, people.